Today on the Hobby Grotto, we're speed painting Adeptus Custodes, the Emperor's finest. The first thing to do is overbrush the whole model with gold. An overbrush is just a heavy dry brush, not heavy as in paint of course, but just a very consistent colour like a base coat, while still leaving that black undercoat in the deep shading, which is something that works really well with metallics. I'm avoiding a few obvious areas that aren't going to be gold just for my own ease, but it doesn't matter about getting any of this on the non-gold areas because we're going to be base coating everything after this in the relevant colours. And the reason I chose Gehenna's Gold is because it's got a nice rich red to it. That enables the gold to hold its hue well with subsequent highlights mixed with silver. It's actually my favourite of the GW Golds because it works so well as a base. After that, I'm coming back with a light dry brush of 50-50 gold and silver to accentuate the detail. This just helps save a little bit of highlighting time later. Keep it light so the model doesn't start to look too silver. And I'm using a Custodes Warden Mini here instead of the regular guard because I think they look a little bit more interesting, but this scheme would work on any Custodes of course. The kilt will also enable us to have a bit more of a look at the red, which is good because it's something that appears a bit more on the characters. Now that we've got the bulk of the model sorted, it's time to fix up all the details, starting with Khorne Red. And for all these, I like to do 2 coats for peace of mind to get a nice even base coat. Different Custodes units are going to have more or less red on them of course, but regardless of the size of the area, I think Khorne Red is an excellent base. I also decided to keep the interior parts of the Pauldron design gold because I think these guys have enough red on them already, and I didn't want the Emperor's Golden Boys to start looking like Blood Angels. But you could do that on a non-robe Custodes to bring in a bit more colour. The gems in the spearhead are getting a nice coat of Ahriman blue. This is a lovely rich blue that we're going to be doing some more interesting things with later, but for now a simple base coat will suffice. I always, as a rule, like to get all the colour on a model first, just to see how everything works together, and if anything needs to be changed or adjusted. There are a few bits of leather on the model that I'm base coating with Rhinox hide. For a darker colour like this, you'll definitely need 2 coats here to cover over the bright gold and get a nice even base coat. It pays to be careful on the gauntlets because there are lots of little bits you want to keep gold there. While the majority of metallics on Custodes miniatures are gold, there are definitely some silver bits too, particularly on the weapon and face mask. Having some silver helps break up the gold and creates a bit more contrast to help define the details of the mini. The amount of detail you paint silver is going to depend on the overall look you want for the model, but I'm keeping it fairly minimal to speed up the process. This is something where you can easily go back and paint more later if you so desire. You can just paint these little bits black, but I like to paint them a dark grey so I don't have to highlight them after the wash. Little tricks like this are always good when you're trying to keep the painting fast and get your minis on the tabletop. Anything that doesn't have a colour is now going to be tidied up with some Abaddon black. When you're adding in the final base coats, it's also a good idea to check the model for any mistakes or misplaced paint before the wash. All the paints you've used so far will most probably still be on the wet palette anyway, so it's an easy fix to get everything nice. Finally, I'm adding some Mephiston red to the eye lenses to get them started. I was actually tempted to do blue glowing eyes, but I think the red will probably work better with the overall scheme and not clash with the gems. I ended up later on just giving these eyes just a little final highlight of Evil Sunz Scarlet. With all the base coats down, it's time of course to add some shade with a Nuln Oil wash over the whole model. Black wash is a neutral colour, so it's going to work well over all these other colours, and that's why I prefer it for speed painting, but if you wanted to keep the gold more warm, you could target the armour with a brown wash instead. Both methods are perfectly acceptable, it's up to you how you want the tone to look as a painter overall. Now that the wash is all dry, I'm just coming back quickly with a targeted dry brush of all the main gold areas, with a mix of Ironbreaker and Gehenna's Gold. This is going to add some more shine to the metallics and brighten them up a bit while still keeping all that nice shading in the recesses. And I also like to come back after the wash and reapply the base coats to build that first level of shading. I'm really enjoying painting and building this Custodes Force because back when I was mainly into 40k, around 4th to 5th edition, Adeptus Custodes were just more a mysterious thing from the lore. So it's really awesome that they're a fleshed out army now, because I love me some Space Paladin Papal Guards, I'm telling you. The same for the red. By working back up over the wash with the Khorne red base coat like this, you can really build some nice shading, and you're still just using the same base coat colour, just building it in layers. For something with a lot of texture like the plume, you can just overbrush these colours on, and if you fill any detail, just reapply some wash or thin down black back into the cracks afterwards, and you'll be all good. Once I've got a nice even Khorne red laid down, I start to build up the highlights with a layer of Mephiston red. And I'm just doing the exact same thing here, multiple thin layers of the same colour to build dimensions. It's really straightforward, and we can add some edge highlights later. A lighter blue highlight will give the spearhead a bit more definition. I've just mixed a bit of Baharoth blue in with the Ahriman blue to lighten it while maintaining the same overall tone. So the model's at a good battle ready tabletop standard now, and I like to try and get my minis to this level so I can get them into some games, and then come back at my own leisure to add in some details and take it a bit beyond a speed paint, some of which I'll be showing you now, starting with some edge highlighting of the red parts with Evil Sunz Scarlet to build even more dimension. For a character model, I might even mix some white with this and do a further sharp edge highlight to really bring out the detail, but really the level you go with the highlighting is up to you, and there's nothing wrong with stopping at a tabletop standard. I like to mix some bone with brown to create a highlight for leather. I think it gives it a nice neutral tone that doesn't clash with any of the other colours, but you could also use something like Doombull brown here to give the leather a bit more of a red look. I'm adding a more defined edge to the blade with Baharoth blue, and then some white mixed in with the blue for the extreme edge points to really get them looking sharp and bright. You could also mix Baharoth blue with Ahriman blue and build the edge more gradually. I quite like sharp highlights on things like this, and if it ever starts to look too bright, you can come back with a glaze of Ahriman blue to bring everything back together. Now for gems, you could simply add a bit of gloss varnish to them, but I'm painting these the old-fashioned way, first with a brighter blue band on the bottom edge, followed by some darker blue on the top edge. And then after all this is done, I come back with the original colour, which in this case is Ahriman blue to neaten up the centre of the gems. And then I follow that by a final white dot highlight to complete the picture. Again, these are all little details that you can come back to after you've done to just take the mini to the next level. So there you have it, one of Big E's finest golden boys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment, and you may even consider becoming a channel member to help support me make even more videos. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Hobby Grotto.